T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
The Space Shuttle Challenger is destroyed just a little more than 1 minute after liftoff.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical
All
miles.
7 astronauts on board are killed. It is the worst disaster in the history of the American space program, and President Reagan has declared a week of mourning for the 7 astronauts, 5 men and 2 women, who lost their lives on their way into space this morning. On what is not only a crushingly sad day for families, friends, and colleagues of the astronauts, but also an enormous shock to the manned space program, which before today had gone so well. Never before have American lives been lost in flight.
The year was 1981, and NASA was about to amaze the world with Columbia, a new spacecraft that pushed the limits of imagination. Instead of using a single rocket like Apollo, the shuttle was attached to an external fuel tank and 2 solid rocket boosters. Each of the boosters was constructed of joined metal tubes, and the field joints were sealed with 2 rubber gaskets called O-rings. But all this technology wasn't cheap, and NASA had to come up with a new funding model.
The creation of the whole shuttle program came in a different economic era than the Apollo program.
So Congress and NASA decided the shuttle program could pay its way by carrying payloads into orbit.
The Department of Defense, private contractors that wanted experiments done in space.
And unlike Apollo, the shuttle system was going to be almost entirely reusable.
They had to return this hardware back into space as rapidly as they could.
They were under constant pressure to launch. They predicted in the beginning that they would be able to launch 60 shuttles a year, that NASA would, in fact, become self-paying or self-funded. But that really never happened. It was an experimental technology, and they just couldn't manage that many, so they continually fell behind.
The shuttle program never had more than 9 launches in a single year.
We have a beautiful picture now. It's coming through.
And to help meet their ambitious schedules, NASA worked with private contractors to build many of the shuttle systems, while NASA engineers analyzed data to see how well everything performed. One thing engineers saw was the O-rings that sealed the booster joints weren't behaving according to design. On several flights, especially those at cold temperatures, rocket propellant had blown by the primary O-ring.
The first time it happened, they accepted it. They tested it. They thought they knew what had happened. And then the next launch, everything worked. And then a few more launches, and it happened again.
But each time, the secondary O-ring prevented gases from escaping the side of the booster. So rather than stalling the program to redesign the joint, NASA waived the requirements governing O-rings, which effectively made it acceptable to fly with minimal erosion. And then came the 10th Challenger launch, and a mission unlike any NASA had attempted before.
At Thiokol, the vice president was asking those engineers to stand up for what they said. Roger Beaujolais took the lead in the objections. He said, I can't prove it to you. All I know is that it's away from goodness in our experience space. But the engineers at Thiokol didn't have the data. So the vice president took the decision-making away from the engineers and asked the managers to decide.
And they did. More than 30 minutes after the engineers had gone offline, Thiokol managers voted to reverse the recommendation and to launch the Challenger as planned.
65 seconds into flight, NASA Control orders Commander Scobie to go to full power.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Suddenly, an explosion.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
Within seconds, Challenger disintegrates.
We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded.
The $1.2 billion spaceship, its 7 crew members, and their satellite payload disappear. Late this afternoon, after 6 hours of searching, NASA reports they found no survivors.